the ceiling windows of his corner office, surveying the Boston skyline. At 52, his salt and pepper hair and athletic build gave him the appearance of a man who commanded respect rather than asked for it. The golden rays of sunset glinted off the plaque on his desk. Connor Insurance Group, founder and CEO. 20 years of calculated risks and strategic decisions had transformed his one-man operation into a powerhouse that employed over 300 people. Seth's fingers traced the edge of his mahogany desk, custom-made from the same tree he'd cut down to build his first office. "Mr. Connor?" Trudy Green's efficient voice came through the intercom. "Your 4 o'clock is here. Send them in, Trudy." The door opened to reveal a young couple, their faces bearing the shell-shocked expression Seth had seen countless times. People whose lives had been upended by disaster, seeking help from their insurance company. "Please, sit down." Seth gestured to the leather chairs across from his desk. "Tell me what brought you here today." As they shared their story, a house fire, an initial claim denial, bureaucratic nightmares, Seth listened intently, occasionally making notes in his leather-bound notebook. This was why he'd built this company, to fix what was broken in the insurance industry. "Let me be clear." Seth's voice carried the weight of authority. "Connor Insurance Group will make this right. My assistant will personally oversee your case." The relief on their faces reminded him of why he'd chosen this path. After they left, Trudy entered with a stack of documents requiring his signature. "You still handle these cases personally," she observed, organizing the papers with practiced efficiency. "Most CEOs would delegate." Seth signed the last document with his Mont Blanc pen, a gift from his twins on his 50th birthday. "That's why we're not most insurance companies, Trudy." Speaking of personal touches, Trudy pulled out her tablet. Guillermo sent over the final numbers for last quarter. The expansion into commercial real estate insurance exceeded projections by 30%. Seth nodded, acknowledging his business partner's contribution. Guillermo Brock had joined the firm 15 years ago, bringing with him a Rolodex of connections that had proved invaluable. The man had a gift for opening doors that seemed permanently closed to others. "And Patty wants to know if you'll be home for dinner," Trudy added, referring to Seth's wife of 25 years. "She's meeting with the party planners for the twins' graduation celebration. Tell her I'll be there by 7, Seth replied, turning back to the window. His reflection showed a slight smile as he thought of his children. James and Sarah were graduating from Harvard Business School next month, both with honors, both eager to join the family business. As the sun set over Boston Harbor, Seth reflected on his empire. Connor Insurance Group had become more than just a successful business. It was a legacy. His children would inherit not just a company, but a reputation for integrity in an industry often lacking it. "Oh, and Seth?" Trudy paused at the door, her tone softening with the familiarity of someone who'd worked alongside him for 2 decades. The twins called. They want to discuss some new ideas for the company's digital transformation. "They haven't even graduated yet," Seth chuckled, but pride colored his voice. "Always eager, just like their old man." "You've given them everything," Trudy remarked, her expression thoughtful. "A future, a purpose, a path forward." Seth's phone buzzed, a text from Patty about the catering options for the graduation party. He typed a quick response, trusting her judgment as he had with all their social events. She'd been handling the company's marketing since before they married, understanding the importance of perception in their industry. As he gathered his things to head home, Seth paused to straighten a photo on his wall, the whole family at the company's 20th anniversary gala last year. Patty, elegant as always, standing between their twins. Guillermo off to the side, raising a glass in celebration. The security guard nodded respectfully as Seth exited the building. "Good evening, Mr. Connor." "Good evening, Marcus. How's your daughter's college fund coming along?" "Growing steady, sir, thanks to that financial advisor you recommended." Seth patted him on the shoulder as he passed. "Keep at it. Education's the best investment you can make." Driving home in his Mercedes, Seth mentally reviewed his upcoming week. Board meetings, client presentations, and preparations for the twins' graduation party filled his calendar. He'd built something substantial, something meaningful, and soon, it would be time to start passing the torch to the next generation. Little did he know, the empire he'd built with such care was already being undermined from within. The following week began with an unexpected meeting. Vince Snell, head of security for Connor Insurance Group, requested an urgent appointment first thing Monday morning. Seth had hired Vince 5 years ago, poaching him from a major tech firm, and the man had never once raised an unnecessary alarm. "You're here early, Vince," Seth noted, gesturing for him to sit. The security chief's usually composed face showed signs of concern. "Mr. Connor, something's not right with our systems," Vince began, pulling out his tablet. "I've been monitoring some unusual patterns in our digital access logs." Seth leaned forward, his expression sharpening. "Define unusual." "Someone's been copying files after hours," Vince reported, pulling up detailed logs on the screen. High-level documents, shareholder agreements, client lists, actuarial data. The access points are internal, using authorized credentials, but the timing doesn't add up. Seth studied the logs, his jaw tightening. "Show me whose credentials." "That's the concerning part, sir." Vince swiped to another screen. "Most of the access comes from Mr. Brock's login information. But look at the timestamps. Many of these downloads occurred during charity events or board dinners where I personally saw him in attendance. Could his credentials have been compromised?" Seth kept his voice neutral, years of business negotiations helping him mask his growing unease. "Possible, but unlikely given our security protocols." Vince shook his head. "Someone with physical access to his office would have an easier time. The pattern suggests inside knowledge of our systems." Seth stood, walking to his window. The morning sun cast long shadows across the city, not unlike the shadows now falling across his trust in his inner circle. "Increase monitoring quietly. I want to know every file accessed, every change made, no matter how small. But keep this between us for now." "There's more." Vince hesitated. "Mrs. Connor's marketing database access shows similar patterns. Large data downloads during times when she's been representing the company at events with Mr. Brock." Seth turned, his expression hardening. "Document everything, Vince, and set up a secure communication channel between us. Something off the company servers." "Already done, sir." Vince pulled out a burner phone. "Untraceable, encrypted. I'll send updates daily." After Vince left, Seth sat at his desk, studying the family photo that suddenly seemed to mock him. He pressed the intercom. "Trudy, get me Daniel from IT. Tell him it's urgent but must be discreet." Within minutes, Daniel arrived, looking nervous. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Connor?" "Sit down, Daniel. What I'm about to ask you requires absolute confidentiality." Seth's tone left no room for discussion. "I need a complete backup of all company data, stored off-site. Make it look like routine system maintenance." "Sir, that's a massive undertaking." Daniel adjusted his glasses. "It would take weeks to do it without raising flags." "You have 3 days." Seth's voice carried the same authority that had built his empire. "Whatever resources you need are yours. But it stays between us." After Daniel left, Seth reviewed his calendar. Guillermo had scheduled several client meetings for the afternoon, meetings that surprisingly weren't in Trudy's original schedule. "Trudy," he called through the intercom, "get me everything you can on Guadalupe Simmons Catering, and find out who's handling their insurance." "Guillermo's sister-in-law's company?" Trudy sounded surprised. "They're handling the graduation party, aren't they?" "Just get me the information." Seth kept his voice casual. "And Trudy? No need to mention this to anyone else." Throughout the day, Seth maintained his normal routine, but his mind worked overtime processing the implications. During a budget meeting, he noticed how Guillermo dominated the discussion about international expansion, something they'd never seriously considered before. "The Asian market is ripe for our services," Guillermo argued smoothly, his designer suit and perfectly coiffed hair projecting success. "We're talking potential returns of 40% in the first year alone." "That's quite optimistic," Seth countered, watching his partner carefully. "What about regulatory compliance?" "Already researched?" Patty chimed in, sharing a quick glance with Guillermo that might have seemed innocent last week. "Our marketing team has connections with several firms in Singapore." Seth noted how they'd prepared their arguments in advance, how they subtly supported each other's points. Had he been blind to this dynamic, or was he now seeing conspiracy where none existed? After the meeting, he received a text from Vince, More files copied last night. Claims processing databases. Need to talk. Seth deleted the message, then called his old friend from law school. Clifford, it's Seth Connor. Can we meet? Somewhere private. The response came quickly. Duckboat tour, tomorrow noon. Like old times. That evening, driving home, Seth took a detour past Guadalupe Simmons Catering. Through the windows, he saw Patty in animated discussion with Guillermo's sister-in-law, both laughing over what appeared to be party plans. His phone buzzed, a text from James. Dad, Sarah and I have some exciting ideas for modernizing the company structure. Can we meet tomorrow? Seth typed back an affirmative response, his mind already plotting his next moves. He'd built this company on calculated risks and careful planning. If someone was trying to undermine that, they'd learn why Seth Connor had succeeded where others had failed. He wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a strategist who'd anticipated and overcome countless challenges. This would be no different. The next day, Seth met Clifford Bird on one of Boston's famous duckboats, the amphibious vehicles providing both tourism and, in this case, privacy. Clifford, now a senior FBI agent specializing in white-collar crime, had aged well since their law school days. His sharp eyes hadn't lost their analytical edge. You're not going to like what I found, Clifford began once they were on the water, away from prying ears. He opened a secure laptop, showing Seth a complex web of financial transactions. It's worse than unauthorized access. They've created an elaborate fraud scheme. Seth studied the screen, his expression darkening. Walk me through it. They've been manipulating claim data, creating ghost policies, and siphoning premiums into offshore accounts, Clifford explained, pointing to various transactions. The scheme is elegant. I'll give them that. Fake policies written to shell companies, premiums collected and diverted, then massive claims filed and paid out to more shell companies. We're talking millions over several years. How did they hide this from our auditors? Seth's voice remained steady, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped the boat's railing. That's where it gets interesting. Clifford pulled up another screen. The auditing firm was changed 3 years ago. The new one? Owned by a holding company that traces back to a familiar name, Guadalupe Simmons. Seth's jaw clenched. Guillermo's sister-in-law. The same woman catering your twins' graduation party. Clifford nodded. The real question is, who else is involved? Show me everything, Seth demanded. For the next hour, Clifford laid out the evidence. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands, fabricated insurance claims, manipulated actuarial data, all pointing to a sophisticated operation requiring intimate knowledge of Connor Insurance Group's internal systems. Your head of security was right to be concerned, Clifford noted, but he only saw the tip of the iceberg. This level of fraud required multiple people working in concert. What about my children? Seth asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Clifford hesitated. There are some unusual transactions from accounts set up in their names. But given their age and position, they might be unwitting participants. Or they might not be. Seth's tone hardened. What's our next move? Legally, we have enough for arrests, Clifford replied. But if you want to understand the full scope, we need to let them play out their hand. The graduation party. When is it? Next Saturday. Perfect timing. Clifford pulled out his phone, showing Seth a document. We've been building a case against your main competitor for similar fraud schemes. But looking at these patterns, I'm starting to think we were led in that direction deliberately. Seth's eyes narrowed. A frame job? Seems likely. Your competitor's CEO reached out to us last month, claiming someone was trying to hack their systems. The IP addresses traced back to servers registered to shell companies we now know are connected to this case. As they returned to shore, Seth and Clifford finalized their plan. The FBI would continue their official investigation into the competitor, maintaining the illusion that the real perpetrators were safe. One more thing, Clifford added as they parted. I'm assigning Agent Allison Ritter to work with your corporate counsel. She specializes in asset recovery. Whatever they've stolen, she'll find it. Back at his office, Seth maintained his usual routine while setting things in motion. He called his lawyer, updating his will and the twins' trust fund conditions. He authorized Vince to install additional security measures throughout the building, and he watched how Patty lingered in Guillermo's office, how his children exchanged knowing glances during meetings, how his empire seemed to be splitting at the seams. Trudy, he called his assistant late that afternoon. I need you to clear my schedule for tomorrow morning and get me everything we have on our offshore operations. Of course, she paused at the door. Seth? Whatever's happening, I hope you know you can trust me. He looked up at the woman who'd stood by him for 20 years, who'd never asked for more than she earned, who'd helped build this company with loyalty and dedication. I know, Trudy. He managed a genuine smile. That's why after next week, we're going to have a long discussion about your future with the company. As darkness fell over Boston, Seth remained in his office, reviewing years of records with new eyes. The betrayal cut deep, but he'd learned long ago that success required more than just business acumen. It required the strength to make hard decisions. The graduation party would mark more than his children's academic achievement. It would mark the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. And Seth Connor intended to write this ending his way. The morning of the graduation celebration dawned bright and clear over the Connor family estate. Seth stood in his study, watching the army of workers transform his sprawling backyard into a venue worthy of a Society magazine spread. The cost would exceed 6 figures, a fact that now carried bitter irony. The tent construction is running ahead of schedule, Patty announced, entering the study without knocking. Her designer dress and perfectly coiffed hair spoke of hours of preparation. Guadalupe's team will begin setting up the catering stations by noon. Seth turned, studying his wife's face with new eyes. 25 years of marriage, and he'd never noticed how practiced her smile had become. You seem to have everything under control. Of course I do. Patty's tone carried a hint of condescension. I've been managing events like this since before we could afford them. Speaking of which, Guillermo suggested we invite the Hendersons. Their investment firm could be useful for our expansion plans. Did he now? Seth kept his voice neutral. Interesting timing. Everything's about timing, darling. Patty moved to adjust his tie, a gesture that once felt intimate but now seemed presumptuous. The children's graduation, our company's growth. Everything must be perfect. The emphasis she placed on that last word made Seth's jaw tighten imperceptibly. Through the window, he watched Guadalupe Simmons directing her staff with sharp, efficient gestures. The catering company's vans bore a logo that matched one of the shell companies Clifford had identified. Have you seen the guest list? Patty was saying, scrolling through her tablet. Over 200 confirmed attendees. The governor sent his regrets, but his chief of staff will attend. Guillermo's connections really are invaluable. They certainly are, Seth agreed, thinking of the offshore accounts bearing similar names to Guillermo's various charitable foundations. The doorbell rang, and moments later, Sarah bounded into the study. Mom, the florist needs your approval on the centerpieces. And Uncle Guillermo's here early. He wants to review some documents with you before the party. Seth noticed how his daughter's eyes darted between them, a calculation in her expression that seemed foreign on her young face. When had his little girl learned to dissemble? Business on a Saturday? Seth raised an eyebrow. The party's in a few hours. Oh, Daddy, Sarah laughed, the sound artificially light. You're the one who taught us the company never sleeps. Besides, Mom and Uncle Guillermo have been handling all the new Asian expansion paperwork. Wouldn't want anything to delay that, right? Patty shot their daughter a sharp look that Seth pretended not to notice. I'll handle the florist first. Tell Guillermo I'll meet him in the pool house in 15 minutes. Seth, darling, don't forget the photographer arrives at 4. After they left, Seth made a call. Vince? Is everything in place? Yes, sir. Every room in the house is covered, including the pool house. Agent Bird's team has the perimeter secured. Good. And the other matter? The backup server is operational. If they try to access any files during the party, we'll know. Seth ended the call as James entered, looking every bit the young executive in his tailored suit. Dad, the caterers need the wine cellar key. I'll handle it personally, Seth replied, watching his son's face carefully. Quite a turnout expected today. You and Sarah must be excited. It's a big day for all of us, James smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Mom says this party will mark the beginning of a new era for Connor Insurance. Did she now? Seth moved to his safe, deliberately shielding the combination as he opened it. And what era would that be? James shrugged, trying too hard to appear casual. You know, Mom, always thinking about marketing angles. Hey, is that the new partnership agreement with the Singapore firm? Seth closed the safe, pocketing the wine cellar key. Let's focus on the party for now. We can discuss business on Monday. Throughout the afternoon, Seth watched the elaborate dance unfold. Patty fluttered between guests and vendors, every movement choreographed for maximum effect. Guillermo worked the arriving guests like a politician, his charm masking the predator beneath. And his children? His twins moved through it all with practiced ease, playing their roles to perfection. Everything looks wonderful, Trudy commented, appearing at his side. She'd arrived early, ostensibly to help coordinate, but really to serve as another set of eyes. Though I noticed Mrs. Connor spent quite a while in the pool house earlier. With Mr. Brock. Did you now? Seth sipped his whiskey. And how long was quite a while? 43 minutes. Trudy's efficiency extended to everything she did. They seemed intense when they emerged. Your wife was straightening her dress. Seth's knuckles whitened around his glass, but his voice remained steady. Interesting. And where were James and Sarah during this time? In the wine cellar, supposedly helping the caterers. But the security feed shows them accessing your home office computer. Keep watching, Seth instructed. The party's just getting started. As afternoon faded into evening, the estate came alive with lights and music. Guests arrived in waves, business associates, society figures, political connections. Seth played the gracious host while noting every whispered conversation, every significant glance. Guadalupe Simmons cornered him by the bar, her smile as artificial as the pearls at her throat. Seth, the party is magnificent. My brother-in-law was right. No one does things quite like the Connors. Your catering team has outdone themselves, Seth replied smoothly. Tell me, how's business? I heard you recently expanded operations. Oh yes, we're growing rapidly, she preened. Guillermo's advice has been invaluable. Such a understanding of international markets. I'm sure he understands many things. Seth's smile didn't waver. Excuse me, I see the governor's chief of staff has arrived. As he moved through the crowd, Seth caught fragments of conversations that meant more than the speakers knew. His children working the room, dropping hints about upcoming changes in company leadership. Patty and Guillermo separately but simultaneously laying groundwork with key investors. The pieces were all falling into place. Everything must be perfect, he heard Patty say yet again, this time to the photographer. The emphasis she placed on the word now felt like a countdown. Seth checked his phone. A message from Clifford. Team's in position. Waiting for your signal. The trap was set. Now, all he had to do was wait for his family to spring it. As evening settled over the estate, Seth noticed the subtle shift in dynamics. Patty and Guillermo had grown bolder with each glass of champagne, their careful choreography beginning to slip. He watched them exchange glances across the crowded terrace, saw the almost imperceptible nod Patty gave before excusing herself from a conversation with a judge. Guillermo waited 3 minutes before following, his path to the house seemingly random but unmistakably purposeful. Seth counted to 60 before moving to follow, gesturing slightly to Vince, who immediately activated the house's internal surveillance system. The party's noise faded as Seth entered the house, replaced by the soft sound of footsteps and hushed voices moving toward his home office. He followed silently, years of suspicion crystallizing into cold certainty with each step. Through the partially open door, he could see them, Patty pressed against his desk, Guillermo's hands possessively on her waist. Their passionate embrace would have been shocking enough, but it was their conversation that revealed the true depth of their betrayal. Everything's in place, Guillermo murmured, his accent thicker than usual. The last transfers went through yesterday. All the accounts are ready. Patty's laugh, a sound Seth once loved, now dripped with malice. And the FBI investigation? Proceeding exactly as planned. Once they finish investigating our competitor, we'll have total control. The evidence we planted is irrefutable. And Seth? Patty's voice carried a mixture of contempt and amusement. He's been so busy trying to mentor the kids, He hasn't noticed they're already on our side. Guillermo chuckled, the sound oily and self-satisfied. The great Seth Connor, so focused on building his legacy that he never saw us dismantling it piece by piece. The twins were surprisingly easy to convince. They're young, ambitious. Patty straightened her dress with practiced ease. All it took was showing them how their father's outdated ethics were holding them back. James especially. He's been dying to prove he's more than just daddy's heir. The Singapore expansion was brilliant, Guillermo praised, his hands still possessive on her waist, using it to mask the transfer of assets. Seth actually congratulated me on securing those connections. He always did underestimate me. Patty's tone hardened. 25 years of playing the supportive wife, handling the little marketing decisions while he built his precious empire. As if I couldn't see bigger opportunities. And now it's all falling into place. Guillermo's smile was predatory. The offshore accounts are set up, the evidence against our competitor is in place, and Seth's own children will support our takeover when the time comes. Seth felt no pain as he listened, only a cold, calculating anger that sharpened his focus. Every word they spoke was being recorded, every admission building the case that would destroy them. When do we move? Patty asked, her fingers tracing patterns on Guillermo's chest. Soon. The FBI investigation into our competitor should conclude within weeks. Once they're implicated, we'll reveal the evidence of Seth's involvement. The board will have no choice but to act. And the children are already prepared to testify about their father's unethical practices if needed. Sarah's quite convincing when she talks about overhearing suspicious phone calls. Patty's laugh turned cruel. Poor Seth, so proud of his integrity. He never understood that real power comes from knowing when to break the rules. Speaking of rules, Guillermo pulled her closer. We should get back to the party before we're missed. Though I must say, celebrating our victory in his own office has a certain appeal. Patience. Patty pushed him back playfully. Soon this will all be ours. No more pretending. No more playing the happy family. Just us, running things our way. Seth silently withdrew, his mind cataloging every word, every admission. He'd known about the affair. The surveillance had confirmed that weeks ago. But this level of calculated betrayal, involving his own children, this required a response they wouldn't see coming. He texted Vince, "Save everything. Send copies to Clifford." Then he returned to the party, his expression revealing nothing of what he'd witnessed. He had one advantage now. They didn't know that he knew. And he intended to use that advantage to its fullest effect. Seth had barely processed the first betrayal when he noticed movement in the hallway. James and Sarah approaching the office, champagne glasses in hand. He stepped into an alcove, his children's voices carrying clearly in the quiet house. "Is everything set?" Sarah's excited whisper reached him. Mom texted that the transfers are complete. Uncle Guillermo confirmed it, James replied, his voice carrying the same ambitious edge Seth had once proudly noted in board meetings. Dad doesn't suspect a thing. They entered the office, where Patty and Guillermo were still arranging themselves to look presentable. Seth moved closer to the door, each word of his children's betrayal cutting deeper than the last. "Mom's new boyfriend is so smart," Sarah exclaimed, giggling as she perched on Seth's desk, his desk, where he taught her to read financial statements when she was 12. "The way you've been transferring those shares right under Dad's nose. It's brilliant." James high-fived Guillermo, the gesture casual but loaded with meaning. "Can't wait to help run the company the right way. Dad's too conservative, too ethical. There's so much more money to be made. Your father never understood the real potential of this business." Guillermo's voice oozed false mentorship. All those opportunities he passed up because of his principles, like the Medicare fraud scheme? Sarah took another sip of champagne. "When you showed us those profit projections, God, Dad would have a heart attack." "That's just the beginning." Patty smiled proudly at her children. "Wait until you see what we have planned for the Asian expansion. The regulatory oversight there is flexible." James leaned against the window, the same window where he'd stood as a child, promising to make his father proud. "The board meeting next month will be interesting, especially when the FBI findings about our competitor come out." And the evidence linking Dad to their scheme, Sarah added, her voice carrying an excitement that turned Seth's stomach. I still can't believe how easy it was to plant those emails using his login. You've both done wonderfully, Guillermo praised. Your father taught you well, perhaps too well. You understood exactly which systems to access, which records to alter. Speaking of records, James straightened suddenly. We should get back to the party. People will notice if we're all missing at once. Especially Dad. Sarah rolled her eyes. He's been weirdly attentive lately, almost like he suspects something. Patty waved away her daughter's concern. Your father sees what he wants to see. He's still convinced you both worship him and his precious ethical standards. Poor Daddy. Sarah's voice dripped with mock sympathy. So busy building his legacy, he never noticed us outgrowing it. To the new Connor Insurance Group, James raised his glass. Where profit matters more than principles. They clinked glasses, the sound echoing in Seth's ears like funeral bells. He watched his children, his twins, his legacy, celebrating not just their graduation, but their planned destruction of everything he'd built, everything he'd taught them to value. Seth's hand tightened around his phone, thumb hovering over Clifford's number. But no, timing was everything. Let them have this moment, this false victory. Let them think their betrayal was complete. He moved silently away from the office, mind already shifting from shock to strategy. They thought they knew him, the predictable, principled father whose ethics they could weaponize against him. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Back at the party, Seth accepted congratulations and played the proud father with practiced ease. Each smile, each handshake, each proud pronouncement about his children's future roles in the company now carried hidden weight. Your twins are remarkable, a board member commented. Such a grasp of modern business practices. They'll do great things with the company. Oh, I'm counting on it, Seth replied, watching his family work the crowd. They're about to learn some very important lessons about business and family. The party continued into the night, a glittering celebration of achievement and ambition. But beneath the surface, the real drama was just beginning. Seth had built his empire on careful planning and strategic thinking. Now he would show them exactly what those skills could do when turned to revenge. Let them think they had one. Let them celebrate their clever scheme, their perfect betrayal. Soon enough, they would learn that Seth Connor hadn't succeeded in business by being naive. He'd succeeded by being several steps ahead of everyone else. The graduation party marked more than just an academic achievement. It marked the moment when masks began to fall, when carefully constructed lies began to unravel. And Seth intended to control every moment of that unraveling. Seth's expression remained neutral as he watched his family's betrayal unfold at the graduation party. The evidence of their duplicity was now complete, recorded, and documented by the surveillance system Vince had installed. Years of business negotiations had taught him the value of timing, and now that time had come. He slipped away from the main celebration, moving to a quiet corner of the estate's garden where he could make his calls without being observed. First, he texted Clifford. Execute Plan A, teams in position. The response came immediately. FBI unit standing by. Local police coordinated. All exits covered. His next call was to Allison Ritter, his corporate counsel. She'd been working behind the scenes for weeks, preparing for this moment. Everything's ready. Allison's crisp voice carried the satisfaction of a well-laid trap. I've got the injunctions prepared. The moment you give the word, we freeze every account connected to Guillermo's network. And the trust fund amendments? Filed and recorded last month. Your children's access to company shares and trust funds is now contingent on clean criminal records and 5 years of legitimate work in the company. The ethics clause is ironclad. Seth allowed himself a small smile. What about Patty's claims to company ownership? The prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause has been activated. Combined with the fraud evidence, she'll lose all claims to company shares. The offshore accounts we traced to her name will be seized. And our competitor? We've already contacted their legal team. They're prepared to file countersuits once we reveal who really attempted to frame them. Their cooperation strengthens our case significantly. Seth checked his watch. Soon, Guillermo would begin his traditional role as party toastmaster, a position his ego wouldn't let him delegate. The cameras are in place? Seth confirmed. Everything will be recorded from multiple angles, Allison assured him. The evidence will be undeniable. And Seth? The trust fund provisions you added last month? Brilliant. It gives the twins a path to redemption while ensuring they can't profit from their betrayal. Have the entry-level contracts ready, Seth instructed. If they want to earn back their place, they'll start from the bottom. Already prepared. Along with the press releases explaining the company's commitment to ethical business practices. The market will respond positively to your handling of internal corruption. Seth ended the call as he noticed Trudy approaching. His longtime assistant's face showed the perfect mix of concern and determination. Everything's prepared, she reported. Security teams are in position, disguised as catering staff. Vince has all the exits monitored. Good. You understand what happens next. Trudy nodded, her loyalty evident in every word. The company will need steady leadership during the transition. I've already prepared contingency plans for client retention and employee communication. That's why you're being promoted to COO, Seth confirmed. You've earned it through loyalty and competence, two qualities I've learned to value even more highly lately. In the distance, Seth could see Guillermo gathering people for the toast. The man's tailored suit and practiced charm couldn't hide his predatory nature. Not anymore. Sir, Vince's voice came through Seth's earpiece. Mrs. Connor just made a call to an offshore number. Should we intervene? Let her play her hand, Seth replied. Everything she does now just adds to the evidence. He watched as his wife moved through the crowd, her designer dress and perfect smile masking her true nature. She played the role of supportive spouse for 25 years, but today would be her final performance. The twins were holding court near the champagne fountain, their young faces flushed with alcohol and anticipated victory. They had no idea that their father had already dismantled their plans, piece by piece. It's time, Seth murmured, more to himself than to Trudy. Let's show them what happens when they mistake ethical behavior for weakness. The party had reached its peak, the garden filled with laughter and music. Guillermo stood on the temporary stage, tapping his crystal champagne flute for attention. The cameras Seth had arranged were rolling, capturing every moment. Ladies and gentlemen, Guillermo's voice carried the smooth confidence of a man who thought he'd already won. Please join me in a toast to our graduates. The crowd gathered, Seth's invited employees mixed with society figures and business associates. Patty stood near the front, her practiced smile never wavering. The twins positioned themselves strategically, just as Seth had taught them, though not for this purpose. To new beginnings, Guillermo raised his glass, shooting a knowing look at Patty. And to the future of Connor Insurance Group. Seth stepped forward, his movement deliberate and controlled. Speaking of insurance, his voice cut through the celebratory atmosphere. Let's discuss fraud. The FBI agents entered silently from multiple directions, their movements coordinated and precise. Clifford led them, his badge gleaming in the evening light. Patty's champagne glass shattered on the marble patio, the sound sharp as a gunshot. Her perfect composure cracked, showing the fear beneath. Mom? Sarah's voice trembled, her earlier arrogance replaced by uncertainty. What's happening? What's happening is justice. Seth's voice carried authority and cold anger. Insurance fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. Shall I continue? Guillermo's charm vanished, replaced by calculation. Seth, my friend, surely we can discuss this privately. Like you discussed framing our competitor? Seth cut him off. Or how about we discuss the offshore accounts? The ghost policies? The manipulated claims data? You don't understand. Patty stepped forward, her voice taking on the soothing tone she'd used for years. Everything we did was for the company's growth. Save it for your lawyer. Seth's tone could have frozen fire. Though I doubt they'll be interested in how you and your lover plan to destroy everything I built. The twins tried to move toward the house, but found their path blocked by FBI agents. Dad, James attempted his boardroom voice, though it shook slightly. This is just a misunderstanding. Is it? Seth nodded to Vince, who activated the estate sound system. Suddenly, the twins' own voices filled the air, discussing their role in accessing systems, planting false evidence, betraying their father's trust. Sarah's face went white. You? You were recording us? I was protecting my company, Seth corrected, from all threats, including my own blood. Clifford stepped forward, his badge raised. Guillermo Brock, Patricia Donovan Connor, James and Sarah Connor, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, and corporate espionage. You can't do this. Guillermo's accent thickened with anger. I made this company what it is. You made yourself a thief. Seth's voice cut like a blade. And now you'll face the consequences. As the FBI agents moved in with handcuffs, the party guests stood frozen, watching the scene unfold. Seth's employees, however, moved with purpose. Security teams emerged from their disguises, corporate counsel appeared with documents, and Trudy began quietly directing the controlled chaos. Mom? Sarah tried again, tears now streaming down her face. Tell them this isn't true. But Patty was already being read her rights, her designer dress clashing with the steel handcuffs. Her mask had finally cracked completely, showing the bitter anger beneath. You self-righteous bastard, she spat at Seth. You think your precious ethics build empires? We could have had everything. I already had everything, Seth replied coldly, until greed poisoned it. The cameras continued rolling as the arrests proceeded. Seth had arranged this public takedown deliberately. The company's commitment to ethical behavior would be demonstrated in the most dramatic way possible. Sir, Trudy appeared at his side with a stack of documents. The press release is ready, and Allison has the injunctions prepared. Seth nodded, watching as his family was led away. He felt no sadness, no regret, only the cold satisfaction of justice served. The party guests began to leave, shepherded out by security while FBI agents secured evidence. Seth's empire would survive this. He'd made sure of it. But first, the cancer had to be cut out, completely and publicly. 1 year later, Seth sat in his newly redesigned office, reviewing the quarterly reports. The company hadn't just survived the scandal. It had emerged stronger, its commitment to ethical business practices earning new clients and investor trust. Trudy entered, now carrying herself with the confidence of a COO. The board meeting is ready to begin. The new compliance measures are showing excellent results. And our security division? Vince has transformed it completely. His team catches potential fraud before it can take root. The industry is starting to copy our protocols. Seth nodded, pleased but not surprised. He'd chosen his loyal employees well, and their promotions had been earned through both competence and character. A knock at the door revealed James and Sarah, dressed in business casual rather than designer suits. Their entry-level positions in different departments kept them separated, another calculated decision. Quarterly progress reports, James placed his folder on the desk, his former arrogance replaced by quiet determination. Client satisfaction surveys, Sarah added her documentation, unable to meet her father's eyes. Seth reviewed their work carefully. Both showed promise, when not corrupted by greed and shortcuts. Your department heads report improvement. Keep it up. They nodded and left, understanding that trust, once broken, required years to rebuild. Their trust funds remain locked behind performance and ethics requirements, a daily reminder of consequences. Later that afternoon, Seth received the final trial updates. Guillermo and Patty had fought the charges, arrogance preventing plea deals. The evidence had been overwhelming. Their lengthy prison sentences reflected both the financial scale of their crimes and their attempt to frame an innocent competitor. The last appeal was denied. Allison reported via conference call. They're facing the full sentences. The asset seizures are complete. Good. Transfer everything according to the plan we discussed. Seth had ensured that recovered funds would be returned to defrauded clients, with the remainder establishing an ethics and business scholarship. Success through integrity wasn't just a slogan. It was a legacy he intended to build. The family photo that once dominated his desk had been moved to a drawer, a reminder of lessons learned. In its place stood the company's new mission statement: success through integrity, not just words, but a principle proven through fire. His phone buzzed, a message from Dora Marks, the prosecuting attorney whose dedication to justice had matched his own. Their professional collaboration had evolved into something more, proving that life often offered unexpected second chances. Dinner tonight? Seth smiled, typing his response. He'd learned that integrity, while sometimes costly, ultimately protected what mattered most. His company was stronger, led by people proven trustworthy. His children were learning the value of honest work, and he himself had emerged not bitter, but wiser. The graduation party had indeed marked both an end and a beginning, the end of betrayal and the beginning of redemption. Seth had chosen to rebuild rather than simply destroy, creating something stronger from the ashes of betrayal. Looking out over the Boston skyline, Seth reflected on the past year's changes. He'd been right, all those years ago, building his company on ethical foundations. When the storm came, those foundations held firm, while those who chose expediency over integrity fell. Success through integrity, he murmured, reading the words that now defined both his company and his life. Some might call it old-fashioned or limiting, but Seth Connor knew better. He'd proven that principles, backed by strength and strategy, could overcome any betrayal. And that, perhaps, was the most valuable lesson of all. Epilogue. 5 years later. The Boston Globe's business section sat open on Seth Connor's desk, the headline bold against the crisp paper. From scandal to success. Connor Insurance Group named Most Ethical Corporation 5th year running. At 57, Seth had transformed his company's darkest moment into its greatest strength. His new office on the top floor of the Connor Tower, a recent acquisition in downtown Boston, offered a panoramic view of the harbor. The space reflected the company's evolution. Modern, transparent, with glass walls symbolizing the transparency that had become their hallmark. "Your 9 o'clock is here," Trudy announced through the intercom. 5 years as COO hadn't changed her efficiency, though her salary and influence had grown considerably. "Send them in." The door opened to reveal a very different Patty Donovan from the polished socialite who'd once plotted his downfall. Prison hadn't been kind to her. The designer clothes replaced by discount wear, her once perfect hair now showing significant gray. She'd been released last month after serving 4 years of her 6-year sentence, reduced for cooperation. "Hello, Seth." Her voice carried none of its former confidence. "Thank you for seeing me." "Sit." Seth's tone remained professionally neutral. The meeting was purely business. Her lawyer had requested it, citing her right to know about her frozen assets. "I assume you've read the final disposition." Seth pushed a document across his desk. "The courts have upheld the seizure of all assets tied to the fraud. Your appeals are exhausted." "I wasn't appealing for money." Patty's hands twisted in her lap. "I wanted. The children are doing well." Seth cut her off. "No thanks to your influence." Indeed, James and Sarah had surprised everyone with their dedication to redemption. After serving 18 months of house arrest and community service, their sentences reduced due to their age and cooperation, they'd started at the absolute bottom of the company. No privileges, no special treatment. "James heads our new ethics compliance division," Seth continued, watching his ex-wife flinch. "Sarah's running our client protection unit." They earned those positions through honest work and proven character. "And they still won't see me," Patty's voice cracked. "Their choice." They watched their Uncle Guillermo self-destruct in prison when his schemes fell apart. Apparently, it was educational. Guillermo's fate had become a cautionary tale in business schools. Unable to accept his downfall, he tried to run another fraud scheme from prison. The additional 20-year sentence had driven home the consequences of his actions. His recent suicide attempt had made headlines, though Seth suspected it was just another manipulation. "The insurance industry still talks about it," Seth noted, his tone clinical. "How Guillermo tried to blame his cellmate for the new scheme, just like he tried to frame our competitor. Some people never learn." Patty's eyes dropped to her lap. The affair that had seemed so exciting, so worth the risk, had cost her everything. Her lover was facing decades in prison. Her children refused contact. Her social circle had evaporated. Even her sister had testified against her to save herself from conspiracy charges. "I have another appointment," Seth stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "The terms are clear in the documents. The trust fund you tried to drain has been converted into the Ethics and Business Scholarship. Last year, it sent 30 students to college." As security escorted Patty out, Trudy entered with the morning reports. Under her leadership, the company had expanded internationally, legitimately this time. Her wedding ring caught the light, Her marriage to Vince Snell last year had united two of Seth's most trusted employees. The Beijing office audit came back clean, she reported. Vince's security protocols are being adopted industry-wide. The FBI's even consulting him now. Good. And the twins' quarterly reviews? Outstanding. James caught 2 potential fraud attempts last month. Sarah's client protection programs have reduced claim disputes by 60%. Trudy smiled. They learned their lesson the hard way, but they learned it well. The intercom buzzed. Dad. Sarah's voice carried the professional tone she'd earned. The ethics committee meeting starts in 10 minutes. On my way. Seth gathered his materials, including the proposal for their newest initiative, rehabilitation programs for white-collar offenders. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. In the elevator, Seth's phone buzzed with a message from Dora. For years of marriage had only strengthened their bond. Her work as a federal prosecutor and his commitment to corporate ethics made them a formidable team in the fight against financial fraud. Dinner at 7? The kids want to discuss their community service program. Seth smiled. Dora's teenage children had initially been wary of their mother's relationship with a man whose own family had imploded so publicly. But time and consistency had built trust. Now they were active in the company's youth outreach programs, turning past scandal into future prevention. The ethics committee meeting room was full when Seth arrived. James sat to his right, Sarah to his left, positions earned through proven integrity rather than birthright. Their faces showed the maturity hard lessons had carved into young features. Today's agenda, James began, his voice carrying the weight of experience, includes our new partnership with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Agent Bird will be joining us virtually to discuss implementation. As Clifford's familiar face appeared on the screen, Seth reflected on the transformation of his family and company. The betrayal that could have destroyed everything had instead forced a radical recommitment to principles. Every employee now knew the story, knew the consequences of choosing expedience over ethics. After the meeting, Seth had lunch with his children. A weekly tradition started during their house arrest that had evolved into valuable family time. Mom tried to contact me again, Sarah mentioned, her tone more resigned than bitter. Through her counselor this time. What did you tell them? Seth asked, though he knew his daughter's strength. The same thing as always. She needs to take responsibility for her choices. No excuses, no justifications. Sarah's smile was sad but firm. You taught us that, Dad. The second time around, James nodded. The Ethics Scholarship Program is reviewing applications for next semester. Some of the essays. They're using our family story as a case study in their business classes now. Good, Seth replied. Let them learn from it. Your mother and Guillermo chose greed over integrity. The consequences were inevitable. Walking back to his office, Seth passed the wall of awards, industry recognition of their ethical transformation. The company's stock had tripled since the scandal, proving that principles and profits weren't mutually exclusive. Allison Ritter, now their general counsel, fell into step beside him. The last appeal was rejected. Guillermo's assets in Switzerland have been seized. The Victims' Compensation Fund is fully funded. Make sure it's publicized, Seth instructed. People need to see that justice doesn't expire. In his office, Seth looked at the photos on his desk, new ones, showing real smiles and earned happiness. Dora and her kids at last year's company picnic. The twins receiving awards for their ethics programs. Trudy and Vince's wedding, where he'd given the bride away. The old family photo remained in his drawer, a reminder rather than a regret. Its replacement was the company's new motto, expanded from the original. Success through integrity, principles proven through adversity. His phone buzzed again, a message in the family group chat. The twins were planning a surprise for Dora's birthday. Their acceptance of their stepmother had been gradual but genuine, built on shared values rather than shared blood. As evening approached, Seth prepared to leave for dinner. Through his window, he could see the lights of Boston Harbor, the same view he'd had when everything fell apart. But now it symbolized not just success, but redemption. The company had survived betrayal by becoming stronger, more ethical, more vigilant. His children had learned the hardest lessons and emerged wiser. Even the victims of the fraud had been made whole, their trust restored along with their money. And Seth himself had found an unexpected truth. Sometimes the worst betrayals led to the best transformations. His new family, built on chosen loyalty rather than assumed trust, proved that second chances came to those strong enough to earn them. The betrayers, Patty living in a small apartment on her prison counselor's salary, Guillermo facing decades behind bars, had reaped the consequences of their choices. Their cautionary tale had become a foundation for something better, stronger, more lasting. Success through integrity wasn't just a motto anymore. It was a legacy, proven in fire, stronger for the testing. As Seth left his office, he passed the security desk where it all began. Marcus, still manning his post, nodded respectfully. "Good evening, Mr. Connor. Give my best to the family." "Will do, Marcus. Keep watching for the small things. They matter most." The evening air carried a hint of spring as Seth headed home, not to the estate where betrayal had played out, but to the waterfront home he shared with Dora. There, surrounded by chosen family and earned trust, he had rebuilt more than just a company. He had rebuilt a legacy worth inheriting. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.